All right, good morning, friends. Happy Friday. Today I'm really excited because I get to install something new on the Forester that I didn't think I was ever going to install. I reached out to a company who makes products for all sorts of off-road vehicles and custom brackets and side skirts and you name it. And they make all sorts of awesome stuff. That company being CAtuned, based out of California. I sent out an email to Max because I noticed that he has and makes brackets for compressors for some Subaru models, but didn't make it for the Forester. So I did a little bit of research. I happen to know that Foresters and Crosstreks and Imprezas share a chassis, and they're all built on the same platform. Obviously, they have different body panels and that kind of stuff. But because a lot of the stuff is the same, a lot of parts are interchangeable, and not everybody knows that. And so I reached out to Max and I was like, hey, I noticed that you make this bracket. This bracket holds air compressors, specifically ARB ones, and installs them underneath the hood on the strut tower on the passenger side. So I looked at some pictures and some videos of the Crosstreks and how they fit there, and the Forester that I have, and I went, these are near identical. There's one small difference, which I'll show you. So I was like, hey, Max, do you mind sending me one of those? I'd love to test fit it for you, make it work. If I have to pay for it, it is what it is. I don't necessarily have a major need for a compressor because I don't do tons of off-roading, but I've used my little portable compressor I kept in the trunk so many times for filling tires, neighbors' tires, coworkers that got a flat tire. I've obviously aired mine down a couple times for some light off-roading. So ARB, like a big compressor, is overkill for my needs, but still very cool, especially to see if this works out. So Max was awesome. He sent me a bracket. I got a compressor from him, and we're gonna install it on the Forester now to see how it works. So this is the bracket. I am really impressed. There's a lot of companies out there that just kind of use cheap sheet metal for things, and there's so many imitations of stuff, but the powder coating on this is beautiful. The bends are all super even. There's no cracking in the coating. Has a nice little logo on there, so you know exactly who made it. And when I kind of test fit it, it fit like perfectly. There's one small thing that I'm going to have to modify on the Forester, but besides that, it should be very straightforward bolt-on, which is exciting for any of us in the Forester world, because the 2018 to 23 Foresters and then the 20 up to the 25 Forester Wildernesses should be able to use these. This is a market that didn't really exist before. Everyone has been using these brackets from this company for the Crosstreks and for the Outback Wilderness. It's super popular. Now we're going to see and know for a fact if it fits the Wilderness Forester, or any Foresters of this generation, the sports, regular trims. So I'll show you what I got in the package, and then we'll start the install. All right, so here we have a single motor compressor from ARB, the bracket from CAtuned, and then the ARB harness and pump kit. Let's see if I can focus this out. The single compressor obviously isn't going to put out as much air as the double compressor, but we are limited to room in Subarus underneath the hood. They make two different types of compressors. They have the brushed and the brushless. The brushless is, I believe, like $100 to $200 more for the motor. It puts out almost double the air given the amount of time. I want to say this is like 25-ish CFM, and the other one is like 45 for the single motors. The brushless motors are also much quieter. That's like another really big thing for them. Again, I'm not going to be using this every single day. I'm not off-roading an absolute ton, so the single brush motor is going to work perfectly fine for anything that I need it for. So that's why that one makes more sense for me, and it also saves $200 for the average person. Here in New England, there's not a ton of crazy off-roading that requires you to air down your tires and need to go up and down. But if you live out west or down south and you have a lot more off-roading trails and stuff where you're going to need to air down, I would recommend going for the brushless motor. Just the fact quieter, and it's going to work a lot faster. So I will show you now what's going on in the strut towers and how it gets mounted. All right, so we have the bracket itself. I already installed the ARB switch. There's a cutout for it. So on these strut towers is where it gets mounted. You can see the holes on the top that go over the bolts for the strut itself. And then this long part of the bracket slides down over the ground mount down there. The difference with the Crosstrek and the Forester is this piece of plastic right here. This part needs to be trimmed off in order for this to fit. There is a separate metal bracket on the strut tower itself, but with this bracket, it does fit around that and it won't get in the way. It's literally just this piece of plastic right here that needs to be trimmed. So I'm going to try to take this clip out, take a silver Sharpie and draw a line right here of what I need to cut. I don't know if I'm going to use an oscillating tool yet or a razor blade or a sharp knife and just kind of work my way along it, maybe heat it up with a torch so it just kind of like cuts the plastic nice and smooth. But let me set up the camera and we'll start going from there. Okay, hopefully the camera can stay nice and stable. Hopefully I'm not a dummy and I knock it over because it's kind of propped up on my engine with the tripod, kind of funky. So this black plastic piece is what I was talking about earlier. There is a plastic clip in there, so first I'm gonna remove that clip. Try with a flathead screwdriver and a little trim removal tool. Realistically, if it breaks, it's not the end of the world because that area is going to be cut off of this plastic anyways. But obviously, if we can pop that out like that, it makes life a lot easier. So underneath that plastic, you can actually see there's a metal bracket here that this plastic kind of sits along top of. So it looks like I'm actually either going to have to bend that out of the way, which is what I'll try to do first. And if that doesn't work, I'll have to hit it with a Dremel. Take the clips and put it up here first. Take the bracket, just kind of, again, line it up and see how it's gonna fit. It looks like I should be able to kind of like bend it out of the way. So that's what I'm gonna shoot for. It also looks like there's a possibility that you could probably just notch the CAtuned bracket to make it fit. We'll ask Brian over here at ModMyRig what he thinks would be a good idea, since he custom fabricates all his stuff in his shop. All right, let's get this in focus. Okay, so couldn't find Brian, so what I ended up doing was using this little adjustable wrench, and I found that if I slid it over this metal tab on this, I had it upside down, I just bent the bracket down a little bit and out of the way. That's kind of good that you don't have to cut it off just in case you return it to stock at some point. You just have to bend that little bit of metal back. Then with test fitting, slides right onto the spot that it needs to be. This plastic part, it looks like I still need to trim it to get it to fit flush down there. So now I'll trace it and cut it with the Dremel tool, because the plastic is still in the way, but when that's lifted out of the way, perfect. The bracket fits really nicely. Looks like, just like I said, that little tiny spot that needs to be bent down. Before I fully mount everything down, I'm going to take these mounting bolts for the compressor out, place the compressor there, and see if it still has clearance with the with the AC line or the coolant line for the heater core, and then the metal bracket to see if anything else needs to be adjusted a little bit. Okay, so when I placed the compressor on the bracket, I noticed that it still kind of lightly touched this metal part, so a little bit more of this needs to be bent out of the way. First thing I did though was to mount the compressor to this bracket, you have to use a 5/32 Allen key and remove 4 little bolts from the side of the compressor that connects it to this bracket. That's part of the compressor bracket. It's on these little rubber grommets to help with vibrations and the noise to keep it nice and smooth. So I took those out. I used a 10mm socket to tighten the 4 bolts that come with the CAtuned bracket, get the ARB bracket onto the CAtuned bracket. So again, I kind of line this up, off the plastic out of the way. I still got to cut that. Everything's looking good. So first thing I'm going to do, or I should say the next thing I'm going to do, is cut the plastic so it's out of the way. I'm actually wondering if I could just bend it and leave it out of the way, which I probably could. Is mount the bracket itself directly to the car and to the strut tower. And then I'll get the compressor, try to mount that and see what part of this metal bracket is in its way, so I can kind of bend that out of the way a little bit more. And then from there, it should be just the wiring and running it for the first time. All right, this is one of those things where I thought I was recording where I wasn't. The compressor and the bracket are all installed. I left a little bit of plastic up here. Like I said, I'm not going to trim it. If you do want to trim it, you only have to cut about maybe 3/4 of an inch off. Not a big deal. Strut tower bolts are torqued down. The little ground wire down there that holds the bottom part of the bracket is installed. Pump is good. This thing fits like a glove. Last up is the wiring. The wiring is pretty straightforward on these. The pumps come with a kit that explain everything with little instructions. So I'm just going to follow those and zip tie them along the back of the firewall, along the brake lines or the little plastic clips there, and zip tie them there out of the way. This is like the hard part of it, right? Getting this all to fit in, and this is, I would say, a 2 out of 10 for difficulty. This is very simple. The important thing is when you do these mods to your car, especially if you have a newer car and a nice car, do it the right way. Don't cut corners. Don't just run the wires and just let them hang on stuff. Zip tie them, cut the zip ties, make it nice and neat. It's worth the extra 15 minutes for it to be done the right way versus just laying stuff there and potentially something going wrong. I'm not going to record me doing the wiring, but I will do the wiring, get the hose stuff set up, and then do a little video clip at the end reviewing everything. So let's get to it. Oh, there's a smudge on the lens. All right, we finished it. I did the full install. We'll go through it in just a second. It's like maybe like just over 2 hours of taking my time. And honestly, the thing that took the longest portion of that time was the wiring. So ARB provides a universal wiring harness, but there's a couple things in it that we don't use in this type of vehicle because we don't have things like air lockers and numerous switches and stuff like that. We're only using one. So I'll go over that when I show the product itself. But it fits beautifully. It works. The bracket, just, I can't say how much of a glove it fit like. It was perfect, right? And that's what we're looking for when it comes to good quality modifications. We don't want to buy something that we have to mess around with or parts are broken on it and go to the hardware store. This bracket was everything you needed. You buy the ARB compressor with it, bolts right to it, and you end up with this. So I'll give you a little look at it and how I did things. So I have it hooked up currently with the hose just to show you how it works. The wiring here is to the back of the switch. I ran everything underneath and zip tied all the way along the firewall, including where the large fuse and the relay are. Everything's tucked neatly, connected to the battery, and then there's the fuse tap over here. So, something that I learned when it comes to wiring the switch itself. There are 3 different types of switch wiring on the diagram from ARB. There's one that says switch 1, there's one that says switch 2, and there's one that says isolation switch. For the switch on this bracket and this setup, you have to wire it as the isolation switch. I wired it up as the first switch, and I couldn't get it to work. It's really important that when you're installing mods like this, and before you zip tie everything, just lay out the wire harness, hook it up, and make sure it works before you do all the heavy install stuff that's a pain in the butt to uninstall in case it doesn't work. Which I did. I traced everything in the wires. I couldn't figure it out. I looked at the wiring diagram, and I was like, you know what, let me just try this. Hooked it up, boom, worked no problem. So that was great. Over here, on the battery side of things, there is a fuse tap that goes between this 20 and 10 amp fuse. And on the fuse panel, all right, we're gonna try this again. I flipped the screen around on my camera and it disconnected when I was going over the fuse panel, or the fuse box. So between the 20 and the 10 here on the fuse box is where I use the fuse tap for the on for the switch and the wire harness. You need to keep in mind that that is not an accessory on. It has always got power. So you got to remember to turn your air compressor off when you're done using it and get rid of the pressure. A lot of cars have accessory on and offs with the keys. The Forester Wilderness, I don't know if it's just this model or this generation, there's no accessory fuses there. They're all just always on. So food for thought, something to think about and remember in the future. At the end, it really doesn't make a huge difference, so that's good. All the other wires here on the battery itself and zip tied all nice and snug, you don't really notice. Because of all those extra wires that are hanging from the switches, I might just kind of clip those and tape them for now. But at some point, I'll probably swing by the shop here with Brian and make a custom harness that is much more direct fit and doesn't have the extra stuff on it. Because there is some excess wire that I bundled up and zip tied out of the way. There are also 2 connections on the ARB harness that you don't use. There are 2 white plugs. They're connected to the wire harness where the bundle is that powers the main unit itself. Let's see, it's a yellow and black wire and a green and black wire with white clips. You don't use those. The harness is designed to go for trucks and other things that have other things to install with the system, like lockers, and we're not using any of that. But so you guys can hear it, and I'm really happy because it's pretty quiet for even being the brush motor and the single motor. Right, that's not bad. Turns off with the pressure switch, so you know that it's got full pressure, and you can use this. Tested it. It works great. Just a reminder, when you're done using it, let out the pressure after you turn it off. So I'll put the switch in the off, bleed out that excess air, and you're good to go. I do recommend only using this when your car is running because it draws a lot of power. And when your car is running, you're getting like 2.5 volts more, maybe like 2 volts more when the alternator is running. So it'll actually run faster and get you a little bit more performance out of it. That's it. We are done with this. The next video is going to be on our new hammock system that's coming in today. Thank you, Brian, again here at ModMyRig and Kaizen Inserts for letting me use his tools and hang out in front of his shop. There will be a discount code that I'm going to put in the bottom of this. Brian and I figured something out that will help all you guys with all the stuff and the products that you're going to be ordering. That'll get you free shipping on anything you order from his shop. So that can save you 10, 15 bucks on even some smaller stuff. Use the code. It'll be Subaru Life. It'll be in the description. That's it, guys. We'll see you in the next video.